In Colorado history, it's always the governors that get the attention and the glory and the fame, and people don't even know the names of their wives usually.
Politics follows feminism and changes by about 10 years. I mean, you still hear things said of first ladies that would not be said of the average wife who works. America is still somehow looking for a very traditional family, even though they don't live it themselves usually.
It's really interesting. There's no job description. Many of my colleagues have their own professions and are, well respected in their own professions. There's no question we have a soapbox, if you will, that we have an opportunity to come out on behalf of an issue and advocate for that issue.
It's kind of fascinating to look back at these women.
The challenge that a first lady faces has changed enormously.
In the old days, the First Lady was pretty much the support of the husband, the mother of the children, and went along with whatever the husband wanted. In those days, when charity was not done by the city or the state or the federal government, it was up to women, and that would have been an early role from early on, that these women would worry about charity and take on charitable institutions and supporting schools, supporting libraries, supporting orphanages, supporting hospitals.
The opportunities are unbelievable. We are part of a very small universe, right? Less than 50 people have my job.
Probably starting with Margaret Gray Evans, the second governor's wife, one who does want to carve out a niche, a certain role for first ladies. Margaret, working with other women, forms charities, the Ladies Relief Society to take care of widows and older ladies, set up what's now the Denver Orphans Home. It's still in existence on Colfax Avenue.
There was a young woman that was a Colorado governor's wife who fought for suffrage.
Mrs. Shafroth, like her husband, was one of our most progressive first ladies. She gets involved with the women's suffrage movement.
She was a very beautiful young woman, and unfortunately, she died at a very young age. There weren't many people like that, but I think it started to turn for first ladies about 10 years after it turned for the average woman, being, having it be okay for her to go out in the workplace and to combine her roles.
Governor John Love, one of our most popular Republican governors in the 1960s, had a very active wife. Ann Love was involved with a lot of other charities, but she's probably best known for being one of the founders of Historic Denver and fighting to save landmarks. This was during the urban renewal period when the public policy was to tear everything down and make it look like suburbia. When Molly Brown's house was about to be torn down in the 1960s at 1340 Pennsylvania Street, Mrs. Love and her friends formed Historic Denver, Inc. to stop the demolition and to buy that house and convert it into what's today the Molly Brown House.
It's a challenge to stay focused on an issue that you want to come out on behalf of and not feel torn around doing too much, especially when you move a young family into a mansion like this, and your family goes through a lot of changes, that's for sure.
I think, when you say the First Lady is going to come to give a talk on this or that, people are eager to have them speaking or working for a cause because they make a great kind of front runner.
I was fighting for reproductive rights. I was fighting for the Equal Rights Amendment, which doesn't seem controversial, but it was. It passed in Colorado, then there was a move to rescind it, and of course it never did pass nationally.
I've been hugely rewarded trying to raise the level of awareness around mental health across our state.
To be marching with the National Organization of Women down 16th Street was pretty radical.
There's everything in terms of my own colleagues, everything from a gal who was her husband's chief of staff, right? And all the way to the other end of the spectrum, there's a gal who went to her husband's election night and his inauguration. and that's it.
Someone said to me, you know, the more liberal your cause, the more conservative your dress. So don't go out there with frizzy hair and bell-bottom pants and, you know, low-cut T-shirts. Dress like a traditional lady and then talk like a radical feminist. And that's what I tried to do. And I'm not saying it always worked, but at least people weren't put off by my image.
It is very hard to be your own self, to not just be the governor's support, not just be the first lady or the governor's wife, but to carve out an individual career. Dottie Lamb did this. She was a social worker, and she was also a journalist who wrote a column for the Denver Post, who did a book, The Second Banana, about the life of a first lady, and how do you have a private life or your own career separate from the governor, who of course you're also trying to support and take care of the kids.
Professionally, as First Lady, I floundered for a while. I was active on behalf of the things I believed in, but I didn't feel I had a true profession. I had too many demands on my time. My children, when we moved in there, were 4 and 7. They had to have an ethics conference on whether a First Lady should write a column. And finally they said, yes, I could, but I couldn't write about my husband or the Democratic Party. I couldn't use it. And I said, I don't want to. That's not why I want to do this. I can do that at Democratic Party dinners. I want to speak to people out there. I want to speak to women particularly. And they said, okay, you've got it for a year. I lasted 17 years, way, way past the time my husband was governor.
I think it's been a wonderful contribution these first ladies have made. They're often speaking up for kids. They're speaking up for women. They're speaking up for the down and out, for the mentally ill, who probably are the saddest case of all. And the great curiosity the public has about a first lady, and asking her questions and just seeing what she's like. She's kind of the unofficial queen of Colorado.